Owen locates us in the middle of the action from the very beginning of the poem. He's struck by the pathos of the soldiers, now like old beggars under sacks, their knock-kneed, coughing like hags, and the dignity, nobility and strength of their youth has gone. Owen is clearly one of these soldiers, cursed through sludge, and with them is trudging towards a distant rest, both the immediate safety of behind the lines, but also the rest of death. The spondees and iambs capture the rhythm of their slow, steady movement. Men march to sleep. And their awkwardness is conveyed in the trochees, limped on, bloodshod. The awkwardness of the movement comes across in the irregular rhythm. This movement is brutally interrupted by the panic of the three exclamations, "Gas, gas, quick boys!" And their confusion is captured by the oddly effective ecstasy of fumbling. The phrase captures the frenzied panic of trying to fix a gas mask while under attack. The sense of relief in line 10 quickly gives way to the horrifying realization that someone still was yelling out and stumbling and floundering. The present participles and the extending of the sentence beyond the main clause create a strong sense of the way the relief merges into horror, which then becomes despair. The use of the words fire and lime bring home only too clearly the hellish nature of the experience. The two-line, short sentence that follows is at the heart of the poem. On it the whole poem hinges. Owen sees his mate drowning, and the idea of drowning in the green gas gives way to the sense that he is killed by a fluid in his lungs, a slow and painful death. At this point, the narrator, writing some time after the event, brings us sharply into the present. "I saw him drowning" becomes, in the next sentence, "he plunges at me," guttering, choking, drowning. The narrator cannot forget what he saw and still dreams of it with all the horror that comes from a vivid nightmare. A word that is too tame for this experience, but is the only one we have. But there is now an added sense of the narrator's guilt. He plunges at me. Could he have helped? He notices the fact that his sight was helpless, and in doing so seems to reproach himself. The guilt felt by survivors of the First World War has been widely written about, but never so vividly perhaps. And at this point, the poem becomes angrier than any other poem in the anthology. Owen now talks to us directly. The pronouns change to you. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, as though we have colluded in this soldier's suffering, and certainly Owen felt that Jessie Pope had. Notice how all the verbs convey continuous action: smothering, writhing, hanging, gargling, and this has the effect of taking us right into the situation, walking behind the wagon. The man was flung because there was no time to do anything else. But Owen makes it worse for us. He forces us through his imagery to look directly and hear clearly. The blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs. There's an onomatopoeic quality to these words, which as we read it, imposes upon us a strong sense of the horror Owen feels. But his real anger is yet to come, as he speaks ironically to my friend, who repeats Horace's lie, "Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori." The use of Latin has been used to dress up the reality in a high-sounding ancient phrase, but it serves to remind us of the fact that such brutality has been a part of life for thousands of years. I'm particularly struck by Owen's use of the word children towards the end of the poem. It reminds us that these were children, many of them, still at school, who went off to fight. And it neatly contrasts with the opening of the poem, in which the soldiers are characterised as made old and decrepit by their experience of war. It is not an honourable or glorious activity, but a desperate, ghastly business that haunts Owen still.